What's up everybody, Trinity here, and welcome back to the Second Street Marvel. In today's comic book review, I'm going to be talking about Fallen Angels, issue number 1, the 6th and final title, spinning out of Jonathan Hickman's Reboot of the X-Men in the Marvel Universe. Now before I get into that, please make sure you're subscribed, click the little bell, and all of that good stuff. So Fallen Angels, issue number 1. This book is being written by Brian Hill. Simon Kurdansky is the artist. The color artist is Frank Diarmata, and BC's Joe Sabino is the letterer. And so this book right here, like I said, guys, this is the 6th and final title that is coming and spinning out of Jonathan Hickman's Reboot of X-Men in the Marvel Universe. It's kind of a soft reboot. You know, they did the House of X and Powers of X series, and this is the final title spinning out of that after X-Men, after New Mutants, and X-Force, and God, I can't even remember what else there is. Excalibur. There's been a whole lot of them coming out here, and guys, I've got to tell you, this book, it was really good. I honestly didn't know what to expect. I wasn't too excited to read this one, but I was eagerly awaiting it. And so basically what's going on in here, I'll show you right off the beginning. The characters that we have here for this title are right here. We've got Psylocke, we've got Magneto, Mr. Sinister, Cable, X-23, and Captain Britain. Now, pretty much what we're getting here at the beginning is we kind of see this this kid who is on a train there with has this like some sort of mechanical thing that she puts on her head. Looks almost like a headphone or something. I don't know. It just looks like some cables that you might pull out of your computer. And next thing you know, her eyes go black, and she goes on this train that she's on and causes this collision of trains. And all through this whole time, we're kind of getting this little backstory, this little overstory, this little narrative being told, if you will. Being told by, it sounds like, you know, what we've come to find out is being told by Psylocke herself, who we find here meditating, you know, there in the gardens on Krakoa. You can see that she's kind of giving, you know, just talking a little bit about her life, about things that have gone in her past, as all of that came to be during the introduction of this issue. And then we kind of see her there meditating, and as she's sitting there meditating, all of a sudden she gets this calling to her. She's visited by the spirit in her head as she's sitting there meditating, and basically tells her that this you're not dreaming. This is actually real. Okay. Don't and tells her don't even ask my name because it doesn't matter. But what I'm telling you is absolutely 100% real. And you have this enemy out there named Apoth. And you need to go. Put a stop to this Apoth, and this is something that you're gonna have to do, because all you're doing is sitting here on this island, basically just withering, just going to waste, instead of putting your skills to use and using them for the for the good of mankind, essentially. And that's kind of what goes on, and she ends up waking up from her from this meditation, and then next thing you know, we see her in Krakoa, and she's in there in the House of M, talking to Magneto. And in case you guys didn't read X-Force issue number 1, I'm not sure what you're doing here, but we already know that Professor Xavier has passed away. He is no longer here on Krakoa. He's dead, essentially. So she's sitting there kind of telling Magneto exactly what's going on. And he's just sitting there, just kind of listening to her as she's sitting there begging to leave the island so she can go seek out what exactly these visions that she was having, and what this spirit was telling her. She's like, hey, I need to get off this island. I'm asking you to let me off. And he's Magneto's pretty much sitting there telling her oh, well, that's nice, but we're not doing that right now. We're all here on Krakoa. You're not going anywhere. So that's just it. And so she's sitting there kind of explaining everything to him, and she's getting ready to leave. And he says, but you know what? I forget things officially. you need to go talk to Sinister. So she's like, well, what are you talking about? And he's pretty much like, when you're telling me something, I'm telling you that I'm forgetting about it officially. Go to the east and talk to Sinister. So she's like, okay. So she ends up going and talking with Sinister about getting off the island. So Mr. Sinister is sitting there, like in his lab, just kind of messing around with stuff. Just tinkering on things. He's constantly messing with things. And some of the interesting things that we see him dealing with here is kind of displayed right here. We see him in his lab there experimenting with stuff, and obviously we see a DNA strand, and that's kind of something that he's obviously been doing in the first place. As in case you've been keeping up with the series, if you're here, I'm guessing you have. He's kind of messing like with this DNA sequence and everything. Obviously doing some sort of experimentation, and Psylocke goes to him and tells him, she's telling him like, hey, I need to get off this island. I've got this vision. And he just kind of explains, she kind of explains everything to him. And he's like, oh, and he's like, he doesn't really care. And he's asking her, he's like, why are you coming to me? He's like, you need to go talk to Magneto. And she's like, well, I did. And he told me to come talk to you. And you can see, it seems like that maybe Mr. Sinister here and Magneto were probably having somewhat of a power struggle, or maybe just over kind of who's ruling and maybe really calling the shots here. It's really kind of an odd situation here after Xavier has passed, and that's something that even Magneto reflects in his dialogue with Psylocke, kind of telling her that like, hey, like when he's talking to her, he's like, this is, if Charles were here, this is what he would say, or at least what I think he would say, and this is really the best that I can do. And Mr. Sinister is sitting there saying, so you're asking me to go against orders that none of us are supposed to leave Krakoa, and you want to leave and go stop this thing? And she's like, yeah. And, he's sitting there kind of telling her, he's like, oh, he starts kind of getting personal with her about some of her past and asking her just these different really personal questions that she is really reluctant to answer and she don't want to, but he kind of forces her hand in making her want to answer these questions. And so he's basically tells her, like, look, you're going to answer these questions no matter how much uncomfortable they make you. You're going to answer them. Otherwise, I'm not letting you off the island. And so she goes ahead and answers his questions. And after she's all done answering these questions, because some of it's just kind of truths that she don't want to face necessarily, I guess you could say. Things she just don't want to really, I guess, admit to. Really, I mean, you really have to get the context of what's going on here. And so she answers the questions, and he says, fine, but you're not going alone. You need to have a team. So he's like, you need to pick some people who are going to go with you. And she's like, well, you're going to make me take other people? Like, I can go do this alone. He's like, no, you're taking a team. So we see that she decides to, everybody's, having, it's peace and love time on Krakoa, right? They're still having a good time. Even after Professor Xavier has been killed, you can see they're still at a point where they're still feeling somewhat safe on the island. And so we flash to a scene where all the mutants are kind of having like this little bonfire kind of party, and everybody's there listening to music, kind of dancing around and everything. And Psylocke goes there and finds a couple of people that she sees there just kind of sticking out of the crowd that aren't having quite the fun that they probably should be at a time like this, which rightfully saying, I mean, none of them should really be having a good time. I mean, Professor Xavier is dead, right? I mean, he's gone. And so she ends up finding these two mutants, which end up being Laura Kinney and Cable. And she brings them back to her house to have some tea, and she's sitting there talking to him, saying, "Hey, like, I need your guys' help to go on this mission. I know you guys are like me. Like we're made for war. This is what we do. Being here for us is unnatural. We're not used to having this state of peace. This peace of mind." And they're just uncomfortable being there. They feel like they have a larger purpose, not just sitting around on this island, basically withering away, just like the spirit who came and talked to Psylocke was saying. And so she's sitting there talking to Nathan and Laura, and as she's sitting there talking, Laura pulls her outside. She's like, I need to talk to you alone. So she goes outside with Psylocke and is sitting there talking to her, and she says, hey, look, I know, like, I'm not sure, I'm not sure why him. Like, I know, like you know us, but I know him. Talking about Cable, and she goes, he needs to stay. Like, we need to go alone. And she's like, well, why is that? And she goes, like, he's a warrior. He's um, that's what he does. Like, you give him an order to go kill somebody, and he'll do it. He'll follow the order. But he deserves this place. Like, he deserves the peace. And she asks Laura. She's like, well, what do you deserve? And she says to not basically live under the shadows of Logan. And so with that, they end up taking off to Tokyo, Japan. And there they end up meeting up with this character who is God, I can't even remember this character's name. Motoko, and she looks just like she looks just like Trinity from the Matrix. You know what I'm saying? She looks just like Trinity from the Matrix there. And there, take a look at some of that art, guys. Okay, just take a look at some of that. Now, so she's sitting there. They get to this place in Japan, and she's sitting there talking to Makoto. She's asking her about this new drug that's going around, and it's not exactly like a drug like pills or anything like that, or narcotics. It's this new like electronic drugs. Kind of like biotechnology. Right? I mean, that's kind of where we're at here in this series so far, and what they've really been battling. And they're talking about what this technology does is it kind of it basically hijacks like your brain system, and I mean you get high on it. So people are out there using this technology to get high off of, and she's sitting there like, okay, well, but who makes it? Like, where does it come from? And she's like, well, you know where it comes from. And Makoto's sitting there telling her, oh, no, you don't. So they show her. She's like, but she's like, I hear you got some footage of this train wreck that had happened. Let me see it. So as she's sitting there watching this train wreck, we learn a little bit more about some of what we heard at the very beginning of the book. And then what we're getting right here as she starts looking at this footage of this train wreck. And at that point, she's like, Psylocke is like, hey, she smashes the computer, she kills everybody there in sight, and they pretty much kill everybody. And Laura, is there with her, and she's like, hey, like, what are we doing? So she's like, here, let me show you. So she touches Laura and gives her all the visions, basically of her past and everything. And Laura's kind of like, whoa, like, I did not know these things. And so then as they're going through, they're looking for this drug. It's called Overlock. And then, of course, we get these beautiful pages. You guys know how much I love these pages of all these story stuff. We get these pages where they're kind of breaking down what exactly Overlock is. And we see that Overlock is basically this combination of technology, and it's illegal technology. The technology itself of Overlock has been outlawed, but what somebody is doing is they're taking the components, like average everyday components that people basically have in their houses, and basically making knockoff versions, or I guess you could say, or that's exactly what it is. And the thing about this technology is it's outlawed in the EU, and it's just outlawed in just these different places throughout the world, especially in Europe. And that's what they're looking at. Is the thing is, we can't stop it because these people are so ingenious that they're using just average technology. All these pieces that they're making it out of, everybody has access to, and they're not illegal, but this finalized product is, and that's the problem. And we see, through some of this, that like this technology, whoever is making it, whoever designed it, is somebody really smart and is wasting their time making basically these cheap drugs for people to get high off of. And just some really interesting things just kind of revealed here throughout. So they end up tracking down this maker of Overlook to this little farm there in Japan. At least, yeah, they're still in Tokyo, I'm pretty sure. And that's pretty much where they go to, and they come upon this shed where these little kids are sitting there, are getting basically high on this technology, and then they fall over dead. But before all of them die, there's this one kid there who is still high on the stuff. Their eyes turn black and everything. Who tells them like, hey, I am Apoth. and like basically you're not going to stop me. We're just basically threatening Psylocke and kind of their mutant existence, I guess you could say, and how they're going to go ahead and keep using this technology to kind of take over the world and kill a whole bunch of people. Now, the interesting thing here is this is biotechnology that we're talking about here, and this is something that has kind of really been like the overarching enemy throughout this new X-Men series. And that's where pretty much almost where it leaves off at. They end up this kid ends up dying, and so that we see we go back to Krakoa and we see Psylocke there saying, okay, here's my team of people. Basically, she's going to be taking Laura and Cable with her out on this mission to stop Apoth. And Apoth is the name of this new god, is what they're calling him, this new god. And we see that the issue ends off with her talking to Nathan and Laura, saying like, look, you guys, something that she was told earlier is basically like, you guys are caterpillars, and I'm going to make you into a butterfly, a beautiful butterfly, so you can spread your wings and fly. And there's just a lot of things going on in the story, guys, here. There's a whole lot to talk about, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in the coming days, in the coming weeks, as everybody is starting to read this book, and we're all going to get together and start theorizing more. But altogether, guys, this book is absolutely great. This is one this one came out of left field. I wasn't expecting this title to be this good, and the art in it is very good. I like the art, and the coloring and everything in this book is absolutely magnificent. Altogether, guys, like, this is another one of those ones you don't want to miss. Again, they've been doing an absolutely great job reintroducing the X-Men back in the Marvel Universe for us here, or this like reboot, I guess you could say, here in the Marvel Universe. I'll show you some more of that. And overall, a lot of this book is like this. A lot of it's pretty dark in its tone and in its settings and everything. But, oh man, I don't know. Whole lot of things going on in this book. But let me know down in the comments below. Did you read Fallen Angels issue number 1? If so, what did you think about it? And what are some of your theories coming out of this book? Like I said, guys, this is a really good one. I wouldn't want to miss this one if I was you guys. That's all I have for this video today, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into the Second Street Marvel. Now, if you haven't already, please make sure you're subscribed and click that little bell so you get notifications anytime I have uploaded new content. It also sends you out notifications anytime I plan on doing a live video. And if you could do me one other favor, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, and if you don't like it, feel free to give it a thumbs down. It's all good. I don't take it personal, but that does just seem a little bit odd. This is only a comic book review. And while you're at it, please do me a favor and make sure that you share it with a friend and invite them to come hang out with us here on the Second Street Marvel. You all have a very good day. Have a great rest of your week. Go out and support your local comic book shop, guys. Let's talk about this down in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video. Later.